I never thought that wearing a simple apron could turn me into a punchline. The room had been filled with the low hum of dinner conversations, glasses clinking softly under the restaurant's soft amber lights, until Vanessa's voice sliced through it all. "Don't take too long, poor waitress," she said it loud, clear, pointing at me with a smirk. My own daughter-in-law, my son Darren's wife. Her friends giggled. One actually looked away, ashamed. But most just stared, expecting me to falter, to stammer, to break. I didn't. I picked up the tray from the kitchen ledge and walked over to their table, heels quiet against the tile floor. I placed the plates down gently: roasted duck, arugula salad, scallops dressed in lemon glaze, without a word, without flinching. But my hands? They were trembling. I froze mid-step, the plate wobbling slightly in my hand. She was pointing at me, her smile sharp and smug. She had come with some friends from her marketing firm, apparently for some sort of casual client dinner. The kind where they pretended to be generous with company cards while laughing too hard at their own jokes. She knew I was working that shift. She requested my section. I stood there in my crisp black apron, the one with the tiny embroidered name tag that read Martha, though no one ever used it. My hand tightened around the plate, felt every pair of eyes on me. Some amused, some curious, some just plain uncomfortable. And Vanessa? God! She leaned back in her chair, sipping her wine like she'd just dropped the punchline of a joke. One of her coworkers chuckled uncertainly, probably not realizing the waitress she mocked was also her husband's mother. My cheeks burned, but I didn't say a word. I set the plate down in front of the man who ordered it. I even smiled, the way we're trained to. Vanessa didn't flinch. She just turned to the woman beside her and said, "She's family. Isn't that adorable?" I could feel my spine stiffen as I turned away. She knew what she was doing. She wanted them to think I was some pitiful tag-along, some old woman still trying to be useful, a sad, broken relic with no purpose but to shuffle plates and remember to smile. She wanted to smear my name with pity, and it worked. But I didn't break. I walked calmly back to the kitchen. I grabbed a pitcher of water and returned to my section like nothing happened. I served bread. I cleared dishes. I kept my head high, even when I caught one of Vanessa's coworkers whispering, "Was she serious? That's her mother-in-law?" The worst part wasn't the words. It was Darren, my son. He knew I worked here. He knew what Vanessa was like. And he still said nothing. He could have warned me she'd be there, could have asked her not to be cruel. But he stayed quiet, again. Back in the break room, I sat for a moment. My hands trembled, just a little. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and reminded myself who I was. A nurse of 32 years. A woman who raised a son, buried a husband, and still found a way to keep moving. I wasn't going to cry in the staff bathroom of DeLuca's. Not tonight. But I also knew something had shifted. Vanessa wanted to make me invisible, replace respect with ridicule. And Darren was letting her. I didn't know it then, but that moment, chicken plate in hand, laughter at my back, wasn't just humiliation. It was a beginning. The walls in Darren's guest room are the same beige they were when I moved in 3 months ago. But tonight, they feel narrower. The little bed creaks beneath me as I sit, carefully folding my old nursing certificates. I don't know why I pulled them out tonight. Maybe I needed to remind myself I was someone before all this. The papers are yellowed, the edges curled slightly from time. RN license, hospice care training, elder care certificates, all of it. Credentials that once earned me respect. Now they just feel like souvenirs from a version of myself that no longer fits this house. Vanessa didn't even come home after the restaurant. I heard Darren's car pull into the driveway past 11. No knock on the door, no apology. Just silence, like my embarrassment yesterday was normal. I live in their guest room, not the upstairs one. That's now Vanessa's home office. I stay downstairs, beside the laundry room. It's cramped, but I told them I didn't need much space. I said it with a smile, even as I tucked my memories into plastic bins. After Harold died, I had nowhere else to go. Darren offered, said, You shouldn't be alone right now, Mom. Vanessa smiled when he said it, but it never reached her eyes. I knew even then that I was entering a space where I'd be tolerated, not welcomed. Still, I didn't expect her to humiliate me like that. I work at DeLuca's to stay active, not because I need the money. Not yet. I wanted purpose, rhythm, something to distract from the grief. But lately, I wonder if Vanessa tells people, I took the job because I was broke. She'd love that story. Makes her look charitable. Earlier today, during a break between shifts, I overheard one of the busboys talking to a waitress. That older lady? Martha? I'd kill to have a mom like her. She's sweet, always helps me out when the register's off. He didn't know I was standing nearby. I didn't correct him. I just walked past and smiled to myself. A small, warm moment buried inside a cold week. I carried it like a pebble in my pocket. Because truthfully, I needed that. Needed to know that somewhere, someone still saw me. Not as a burden, not as an unwanted house guest with expired dreams. Just as someone kind. Dinner tonight was silent. Darren sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone while Vanessa reheated leftovers. She didn't ask if I'd eaten. I didn't offer. I sat at the small table near the window and made myself toast with jam. No one said a word. There's a photo on the shelf in the hallway. Darren, age 9, standing next to me at his school's science fair. He had won 3rd place for a homemade volcano. In the picture, he's beaming, one hand holding the ribbon, the other gripping my arm. Back then, he used to tell everyone I was the best mom in the world. Now he avoids eye contact when I enter the room. Sometimes I wonder if he's ashamed of me, or maybe he just doesn't know how to stand up to her. Either way, it hurts. Not like a stab, more like a slow erosion. Little pieces of who I was, ground down by silence and side glances. I tuck the certificates into an envelope and slide them back under my bed. They don't belong on the walls of this house. Not anymore, but I still keep them close. Because maybe, someday soon, I'll need to remind someone else what I'm capable of. Even if that someone is me. It was late afternoon when Louise arrived, wrapped in her favorite plaid shawl, arms full of grocery bags she refused to let me carry. Sit, she said before I could protest. You've done enough bending this week. The kettle whistled, just as she set the bread and fruit on the counter. It was comforting, that shrill sound of something boiling on purpose. Not like the quiet ache that builds in this house, drip by drip, word by word, until you realize the floor under your feet is hollow. We sat at the tiny kitchen table. Shared space, they called it. It's really just a corner, with a cracked tile floor and a plastic fruit bowl that never seems to have real fruit in it. I poured us both tea, chamomile for me, peppermint for her. The same ritual we used to do at Mama's table, years ago, when the world felt a little more manageable. Louise looked at me over the rim of her mug. You gonna tell me why Vanessa called you a waitress in front of a restaurant full of people, like you were some stray dog she'd taken in? I didn't answer right away. Just stirred my tea. She knows exactly what she's doing, I said finally, and she's been doing it for weeks now. It's not just the restaurant. Louise's face hardened. What else has she done? So I told her. About the subtle remarks. The way Vanessa tells people I moved in because I couldn't be alone. The times she's left dishes for me like it's my duty. How she doesn't knock, just enters rooms like walls don't mean anything when I'm inside them. Louise didn't interrupt. She just nodded, her eyes dark and calm. That kind of stillness she gets when she's thinking through something dangerous. Then I told her about the shawl. My favorite one, the burgundy wool Harold gave me for our 35th anniversary. I'd left it in the laundry basket last week, just once. Came back to find it washed on hot, shrunk down to doll size. Vanessa shrugged and said, "Oops, I guess wool needs more supervision." It wasn't an accident. Louise exhaled sharply. She's trying to make you look weak, pitiful, like some old barn cat clinging to the porch. I know, I whispered. Then why are you letting her? I looked out the small kitchen window. The garden was overgrown. Darren used to help me plant herbs when he was little. Now he couldn't even keep a conversation alive for 10 minutes. Because if I push back now, I said slowly, she'll twist it, make it seem like I'm the unstable one, the jealous mother-in-law clinging to her son's leg. Right now, she's building a story, a version of me that suits her narrative. And you're just letting her? I looked her dead in the eye. Not letting, watching. Louise sat back. What are you waiting for? I sipped my tea. Proof, patterns, and timing. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but when it's time, you better not flinch. I smiled, but it wasn't soft. I won't. We sat in silence after that, listening to the clink of the fridge cycling on and the muffled voices of Vanessa's favorite crime show echoing from the living room. There are two kinds of strength I've learned. One that stands in the storm, fists raised, and one that sits still and waits for the wind to change, knowing exactly which way it needs to blow. It was just after 9 p.m. when I stepped into the hallway to get a glass of water. The house was dim, lit only by the glow of the TV in the living room. Vanessa's voice drifted from around the corner. She was on the phone, laughing, sharp, a little too loud. I paused. Something about her tone put me on edge. That syrupy sweetness she used only when she was about to say something sour. She's clinging to dignity like it's a designer bag, she said, drawing out the last word like it tasted bad. Pathetic, honestly. There was a pause, then the sound of muffled laughter on the other end. She used to be a nurse or something. Now she's just here, folding towels like they're gold bars. I stood frozen in the hallway, just out of sight, one hand braced against the wall. My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't move, didn't make a sound. I let her keep going. She acts like she's so composed, but really, she's just desperate. Darren feels sorry for her. That's the only reason we let her stay. Let her stay. As if I was some stray dog curled up on their welcome mat. There was more. A sigh then. I swear, if I have to hear one more story about how she, quote, managed entire wards back in the day, I'm going to lose it. Newsflash, Grandma, nobody cares. This isn't Grey's Anatomy. This is our house now. The call ended with a laugh and a soft ding. I turned and walked back to my room, quietly, carefully, the way a woman does when she's collecting something heavy without showing she's lifting it. She didn't see me, didn't know I'd heard every word. Maybe she didn't care. Or maybe she truly believed I was too soft, too blind, too desperate to notice how quickly the ground beneath me was shifting. But I noticed. I closed my bedroom door behind me and leaned against it. The small guest room looked exactly as I'd left it. Tidy, plain, forgettable. But something inside me wasn't the same. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was something colder. A kind of sadness that curdles into clarity. Like finding out the house you built your whole life in was never yours. It just hadn't collapsed yet. I didn't cry. There was a time when words like that would have wrecked me. But tonight, they just settled in. Heavy, but not surprising. Like the second shoe dropping, after you've already heard the first hit the floor. She wanted to make me invisible. But I saw her now, clearer than ever. Vanessa wasn't just cruel. She was strategic. And Darren, he had to know. At least some of it. No man is that blind unless he chooses to be. And that choice, his silence, his absence from the table when the jokes were made, was its own kind of betrayal. I sat down at the edge of my bed, opened my nightstand drawer, and pulled out a small notebook. I started writing. Date, time, exact words, where she stood, what she said. I'd write it all down. Not to confront her. Not yet. But because stories, even cruel ones, have patterns. And when you learn the rhythm, you know exactly when to cut the music. She thinks I'm clinging to dignity like it's a designer bag. She has no idea what I'm really holding on to. My silence isn't weakness. It's a countdown. The next morning, I noticed something odd. Darren was sitting at the kitchen table, hunched over a folder thick with paperwork. Vanessa stood beside him, one hand on his shoulder, the other pointing at something inside. I stayed out of sight, behind the corner wall. Their voices were low, tense, but familiar. The sound of people planning something they didn't want you to hear. I didn't want to eavesdrop. Not at first. But then I heard Darren say, "We'll just explain it's a short-term investment. It's not like she'll understand the details anyway." "She doesn't need to," Vanessa replied. "She trusts you. Just get her to sign the transfer form." "You're the executor, aren't you?" My blood ran cold. Transfer, executor, trust. I stepped back before they could spot me, heart pounding in my chest like it was trying to break out and run for help. I waited in the laundry room until they left for the gym. They never take me. Darren once said it was too loud in there for you, Mom. He said it like he was being kind. But it was just another excuse to keep me in the dark. When the house fell quiet, I walked straight to the table. The folder was gone, but Darren had left his briefcase open. Just slightly. Enough. I don't know what I expected, maybe some innocuous bank statements. But what I found were papers, investment documents, applications for something called a family development property, and one particularly heavy page with my name on it. The title read, Informal Financial Contributor Agreement. I read it twice, then a third time. It claimed I was offering a loan. No, not a loan, a contribution, toward a down payment on a mixed-use building Darren and Vanessa were trying to buy with two other couples. It was phrased in soft language. "Martha's support is deeply appreciated," it said, like a thank you card. No terms, no guarantees, just my name and a blank line where my signature should go. They hadn't asked me. Not once. And yet, in Darren's handwriting, I saw the word pending written next to my name. Not ask Mom. Not discuss with Martha. Just pending. Like a box that would eventually check itself. I took photos of every page, slowly, carefully, like someone preserving evidence. Then I slipped everything back exactly as I found it, except for one page, the one with my name. That page I scanned on the printer down the hall, then emailed to myself. I deleted the scan history, cleared the sent folder, returned everything to where it was. They didn't need to know what I had. Later that day, Darren asked me how I was feeling. Out of nowhere, no eye contact, just the question tossed out like a fishing line. "Fine," I said. "Why?" he shrugged. "Just, you seemed a little off lately. You know, if there's anything you want to talk about," I smiled. "No, dear, nothing at all." He nodded, but I could see the twitch in his jaw. The guilt was there, just buried. That night, I opened a new folder on my old laptop. I named it, simply, If They Push. I uploaded the photos, labeled everything clearly, time-stamped, dated. I still hadn't decided what I would do with it. But that didn't matter yet. For the first time in months, I felt something new simmering under my skin. Not sadness, not fear, readiness. Let them whisper, let them plan. I've been underestimated before. That's how I got this far. It was Darren's cousins who came first. David and Lynette, two friendly enough faces from his side of the family. We hadn't seen them in months, but Vanessa made a show of inviting them over for brunch. "You know how hard it is for Martha to get out these days?" she said loudly as she filled David's glass with orange juice. "So we're trying to keep things lively at home for her." She said it like I was a child. Or a pet. A delicate creature, best kept indoors, shielded from the world. I said nothing, just folded my napkin and smiled politely. Vanessa laughed too loudly when I offered to help clear the table. "Oh no, sit, Martha. You've done enough. Let the younger ones handle the heavy lifting, okay?" I didn't argue, but I did notice Lynette glance between us, brows furrowed. "You're still working part-time, right?" she asked me. I nodded. "Yes, a few shifts a week at DeLuca's." "Oh?" David tilted his head. "I thought you retired." Vanessa cut in, her voice smooth as cream. "Well, she did. But, you know, when you're not used to financial stability, it's hard to stop chasing the paycheck. Darren and I try to help where we can, but she's very proud." It hit me like a slap. Financial stability. As if I'd never had it. As if Harold and I hadn't spent 35 years building a life solid enough to carry Darren through college and beyond. As if I was here, cramped in their guest room, because I'd failed to plan. I looked to Darren, seated at the head of the table. He didn't say a word, just sipped his coffee, eyes on his phone, letting the silence seal her story. I bit the inside of my cheek until the sharpness grounded me. Later, after the dishes were done, and everyone had retreated to their little corners, I returned to my room and found something waiting on the pillow. A plain white envelope. No name on the front. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed. Anonymous. Vanessa's planning something big. Be careful. That was it. No signature. No explanation. Just those words, printed cleanly in black ink. My hands trembled slightly as I read it again. I checked the envelope. Nothing. Not even a seal. I didn't know what chilled me more, the warning or the fact that someone else saw what was happening and stayed silent until now. I tucked the letter into my drawer, alongside the copied documents. And then I just sat thinking. Someone out there believed me, saw what Vanessa was doing. Maybe they couldn't say it out loud, but they still wanted me to know. That mattered more than they'd ever understand. Before bed, I poured myself a small glass of wine and walked outside to the tiny patch of garden that Vanessa never bothered with. The night air was cool, the stars sharp against the sky, and I realized something. Vanessa wants everyone to see me as fragile, broke, dependent, but what she doesn't realize is this: people only buy that story when no one's watching or tell it. And now, someone's watching. I'm not alone. And that changes everything. The next morning, I made myself coffee and oatmeal, same as usual, but I added one new item to the routine, a trip to the electronics store. It wasn't a big one, just a quiet little shop down near the hardware district. The kind of place where they still said ma'am and helped you carry things to your car if you looked like your hands were full. I told the clerk I needed something small, discreet. Just for home security, I said, smiling. He showed me a few options. I chose a digital audio recorder, about the size of a lipstick. It had a battery life of 12 hours, and could be clipped under a counter or stuck with a magnet. Perfect. Back at the house, I waited until the place was empty. Vanessa at her Pilates class, Darren out for errands, and I installed it in the kitchen, tucked neatly beneath the bottom edge of the cabinet near the spice rack. You'd never see it unless you were looking for it. I didn't feel guilty. I felt still. This wasn't revenge. This was insurance. Because when someone starts calling you unstable, forgetful, unreliable, you need more than memory to protect yourself. You need evidence. That night, after dinner, I heard them talking in the kitchen again. I stayed in my room, didn't listen through the door this time. I didn't need to. The recorder would remember for me. It's strange, knowing you're being lied about in the very house you sleep in. It wears on you. Wears down the lines between anger and exhaustion. I waited until midnight to retrieve the device, popped it into my laptop, listened. Vanessa, she stood in front of the fridge for like 5 minutes today, just staring at the butter. I think she forgot what she was doing. Darren, you're exaggerating. She's just old school. Vanessa, no, babe, I'm serious. She asked me where the salt was, and it was in her hand. Twice. I'm telling you, we need to get ahead of this. If something happens to her, it can't come back on us. Darren didn't respond right away. Then, what are you saying? Vanessa lowered her voice, just enough to make the mic strain, but not enough to hide her words completely. I'm saying, if we start documenting things now, it'll be easier if we ever need to move her. Legally. I'm not saying today. But soon. She's not safe on her own. She paused. And she's still got control of the trust. You think she'll leave anything to us if she thinks we're plotting? Darren's voice, quieter than before. I'll talk to her. Try to ease into it. I hit stop. There it was. Not just suspicion. Not just mockery. But planning. Prepping the narrative. Laying the foundation for illegal removal. For guardianship. For access. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about what I still controlled. I didn't cry. Not then. I backed up the recording, saved it to a new folder, labeled it Kitchen Tape 1, and then I forwarded a copy to Louise. Subject line, "Keep this safe, just in case." She replied 2 minutes later. "Got it. Do not delete the original. If they're planting seeds, we'll plant roots." That night, I didn't sleep, but I also didn't feel powerless. Because for the first time, I had something stronger than faith or hope or polite endurance. I had proof. It started with a thud. A chair scraped hard against the tile floor. Then I heard Vanessa's voice rise. High, panicked, unnatural. "Oh my God, Darren," she screamed at me. "She forgot who I was. I think she's having an episode." I was in my room, reading. Quiet, calm, completely myself. But from the sound of it, you'd think I was tearing through the house like a madwoman. I crept to the hallway. Darren's voice was panicked too, but confused. "Wait, Mom, are you okay?" Vanessa sniffled. She just stood there, glaring at me. Then she shouted, "You're not real!" I swear. I thought she was going to hit me. I stepped back, careful not to let the floorboards creak. She was lying. Flat out lying. There hadn't been a confrontation. Not a look, not a word. I'd been in my room the whole time, reading a paperback mystery from the library. But Vanessa's voice had tremble, performance, even a soft, choking sob. I could hear her pacing the kitchen, like she was trying to sound cornered. Darren's voice dropped lower. "This isn't the first time, is it?" "No," she whispered. "Last week, remember? She put the milk in the pantry and the cereal in the fridge. I didn't say anything, but it scared me. What if she leaves the stove on?" The panic, the concern, the subtle shift toward, "We need to do something." My breath caught in my throat. I'd lived enough years, lost enough patience, and sat with enough dementia families to know exactly what she was doing. She wasn't just planting doubt. She was building a case. I didn't interrupt them. I didn't defend myself. I simply went back to my room, closed the door, and checked the recorder. The little red light blinked. It had caught every second. By morning, things were normal again. Vanessa smiled politely, offered me tea. Darren kissed my cheek with that gentle, patronizing concern that only shows up after someone's been warned you might not be well. They thought I didn't know. They thought they were ahead. But I had the recording. I played it again, listening to the exact moment her voice cracked into tears. It was acting, but good acting. I sent it to Louise with a simple note. She's not just lying now, she's rewriting me. Louise didn't reply immediately. But that afternoon, I got a voicemail from her, her voice steady, clipped with fury. "Send a copy to Harmon, the judge from the restaurant. You trust him, right? Time to let someone with a gavel start watching too." I didn't hesitate. Judge Harmon had always been kind to me at DeLuca's. Never intrusive, but he noticed things. When Harold passed, he left his business card folded into his check one night. Said, "You ever need someone fair, call?" I never had. Until now. I emailed him. Didn't say much, just that I was in a complicated situation and I was gathering documentation. I attached the audio file and the photo I'd taken of my medication, pills that had been tampered with last week. I'd noticed the difference in color. Didn't say anything at the time. But I took a picture. Just in case. Judge Harmon responded that evening. "Martha, thank you for trusting me. I will keep this file secure. If anything escalates, I'll assist however I can. You're not alone in this." That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of herbal tea and let the night hold me. They were trying to rewrite me, redefine me, but I still knew the truth. And now, so did someone who wore a robe and held a pen that signed orders. They can fake panic. I'll stay calm. They can cry. I'll document. They can try to erase me. But I know exactly where I stored the pen. It started with a thud. A chair scraped hard against the tile floor. Then I heard Vanessa's voice rise. High, Panicked. Unnatural. Oh my God. Darren, she screamed at me. She forgot who I was. I think she's having an episode. I was in my room, reading. Quiet, calm, completely myself. But from the sound of it, you'd think I was tearing through the house like a madwoman. I crept to the hallway. Darren's voice was panicked, too, but confused. Wait, Mom? Are you okay? Vanessa sniffled. She just stood there, glaring at me. Then she shouted, You're not real. I swear, I thought she was going to hit me. I stepped back, careful not to let the floorboards creak. She was lying. Flat out lying. There hadn't been a confrontation. Not a look. Not a word. I'd been in my room the whole time, reading a paperback mystery from the library, but Vanessa's voice had tremble, performance, even a soft, choking sob. I could hear her pacing the kitchen, like she was trying to sound cornered. Darren's voice dropped lower. This isn't the first time, is it? No, she whispered. Last week, remember? She put the milk in the pantry and the cereal in the fridge. I didn't say anything, but it scared me. What if she leaves the stove on? The panic, the concern, the subtle shift toward we need to do something. My breath caught in my throat. I'd lived enough years, lost enough patience, and sat with enough dementia families to know exactly what she was doing. She wasn't just planting doubt. She was building a case. I didn't interrupt them. I didn't defend myself. I simply went back to my room, closed the door, and checked the recorder. The little red light blinked. It had caught every second. By morning, things were normal again. Vanessa smiled politely, offered me tea. Darren kissed my cheek with that gentle, patronizing concern that only shows up after someone's been warned you might not be well. They thought I didn't know. They thought they were ahead. But I had the recording. I played it again, listening to the exact moment her voice cracked into tears. It was acting. But good acting. I sent it to Louise with a simple note. She's not just lying now, she's rewriting me. Louise didn't reply immediately. But that afternoon, I got a voicemail from her. Her voice steady, clipped with fury. Send a copy to Harmon, the judge from the restaurant. You trust him, right? Time to let someone with a gavel start watching too. I didn't hesitate. Judge Harmon had always been kind to me at DeLuca's. Never intrusive, but he noticed things. When Harold passed, he left his business card folded into his check one night, said, You ever need someone fair, call. I never had. Until now. I emailed him. Didn't say much, just that I was in a complicated situation, and I was gathering documentation. I attached the audio file and the photo I'd taken of my medication, pills that had been tampered with last week. I'd noticed the difference in color. Didn't say anything at the time, but I took a picture, just in case. Judge Harmon responded that evening. Martha, thank you for trusting me. I will keep this file secure. If anything escalates, I'll assist however I can. You're not alone in this. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of herbal tea and let the night hold me. They were trying to rewrite me, redefine me, but I still knew the truth. And now, so did someone who wore a robe and held a pen that signed orders. They can fake panic. I'll stay calm. They can cry. I'll document. They can try to erase me. But I know exactly where I stored the pen. The waiting room was quiet, just the soft tick of a clock and the faint scent of old coffee. I sat with my hands folded in my lap, the file folder snug against my hip like a second spine. Inside it, the audio recording, the medication photo, a copy of my will, the one they'd never seen but assumed they controlled. When the receptionist called my name, I stood tall. I didn't need a walker. I didn't forget where I was. And I certainly wasn't lost. Ms. Greer is ready for you, she said gently. My lawyer, Evelyn Greer, looked up from her desk with a smile that reached her eyes. Martha, good to see you. Ready to make some changes? More than ready, I said, settling into the chair across from her. I opened the folder and laid the contents in front of her like cards on a poker table. She didn't flinch, just picked up the medication photo and frowned. You think someone's been tampering? I know it, I said quietly. And I have a recording I'd like you to listen to before we proceed. I handed her a flash drive. While she played it, I watched her face carefully. Her expression didn't change much, just a subtle tightening around her jaw when Vanessa's voice hit that fake sob. When the file ended, she exhaled and looked at me. I've seen enough, she said. We're moving everything under a new trust. You're removing Darren and Vanessa? Yes, entirely. Medical directives? Also updated. I'll name Louise as my healthcare proxy. Darren doesn't get to decide what happens to me. Not now. Not ever. Financial access? I shook my head. Locked. From this moment forward, everything goes through you and Louise. We worked for 2 hours. New trust documents. Revised medical power of attorney. Beneficiary exclusions. It was tedious, but methodical. Each signature felt like a small exhale. A gentle reclaiming of breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. By the time we were done, Evelyn gave me a copy of the finalized documents and a flash drive with secure backups. Do you want to notify them? She asked. No, I said, sliding the folder into my bag. Not yet. Let them think I'm still folding laundry and forgetting the salt. She smiled. They're going to be furious when they find out. I nodded. That's how I'll know it worked. Before I left, I made one more stop. DeLucas wasn't busy that afternoon. Judge Harmon sat at his usual table, sipping his espresso slowly like it was a sacred ritual. I approached quietly. Afternoon, Your Honor. He looked up, smiled. Ms. Martha, you have that look in your eye. The one folks get right before something changes. I slid a sealed envelope onto the table. Inside, a copy of the Trust and Medical Directive, just in case. If anything happens, I said, I want one more person outside that house to know what's real. He didn't open it, just tucked it into his briefcase and nodded. You're doing this right, he said. Quietly, thoroughly. No one can twist what's written in ink. I walked home slower than usual, but not out of fatigue. I was savoring something. Control. They had spent weeks crafting a narrative. A story where I was helpless, forgetful, in decline. But I'd written a new one. And in it, I wasn't the weak old woman in the guest room. I was the author. Of my estate. Of my healthcare. Of my life. Let Vanessa play the part of caring daughter-in-law. Let Darren nod along. Their names were still hanging in the air at home. But legally, they were already gone. It was just after breakfast when I noticed it. The pills looked off. I take the same ones every morning. Lisinopril for blood pressure, calcium with vitamin D, and a small baby aspirin for my heart. I've been taking them since before Harold passed. I know what they look like, what they feel like between my fingers. But that morning, the calcium tablet was different. Paler. Chalky instead of smooth. A strange, bitter smell, faint but sharp enough to raise something in me. I didn't say anything. I placed the tablet on a napkin and took a photo. Then I compared it with the backup strip I kept in my travel kit. Still sealed, still normal. The difference was clear. Someone had replaced it. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't even hint that I noticed. Because if Vanessa was trying to make me look confused, unstable, possibly senile, me running down the hallway waving a pill bottle would be the very image she needed to prove it. No, this would be handled differently. That afternoon, I called my doctor. Dr. Patel had known me for years, treated Harold during his final days. She was kind, patient, and most importantly, discreet. I'd like to come in, I said. Not for anything urgent, just a routine evaluation. Mental clarity, memory, that sort of thing. Would you be willing to write an official report? She hesitated for a fraction of a second. Martha, has something happened? I smiled into the phone. Let's just say I'd like to be prepared in case someone says otherwise. The appointment was set for Thursday. I didn't tell Darren. I certainly didn't tell Vanessa. I simply packed my purse with my ID, the pill photo, a thumb drive with the audio recording. and the anonymous letter. My own little arsenal of quiet truth. Dr. Patel ran a full cognitive test. Reflexes, recall, memory sequencing. I passed each one without issue. She smiled, scribbled notes. "I'm writing you a clean bill of mental health," she said, handing me the letter herself. Signed and sealed. I tucked it gently into my folder. Proof. I left her office feeling light, almost weightless. Not because the danger had passed, but because now, if they came for me with lawyers or accusations or carefully framed interventions, I could answer with something stronger than denial. I had documentation. I had the truth in writing. At home, I placed the doctor's letter into the fireproof box with the trust documents and medical directives. The box was hidden under a pile of old blankets in the back of the closet. Not fancy, not high-tech, but solid, secure, mine. That night, Vanessa was in an unusually cheerful mood. She made dinner, even plated it for me. Rosemary chicken with mashed potatoes and greens. I didn't touch it, not because I was scared, but because I wanted her to notice. She asked, all smiles, "Not hungry tonight?" I looked her in the eye. Just had a big lunch with an old friend, one of those long, filling meals where you leave with more than just food. She froze for half a second, just a flicker. Then she nodded. Of course. I carried my plate to the sink, emptied it neatly, and returned to my room. Let her wonder. Let her feel the itch of suspicion that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as blind as she hoped. Because here's the truth. You don't need to raise your voice to raise the stakes. Sometimes, the most powerful move isn't yelling in a hallway. It's a sealed envelope in a fireproof box. It was a Tuesday when I overheard the panic. Vanessa was on the phone, pacing the backyard like a trapped animal. Her voice was sharp, fast, scattered between apologies and frantic explanations. I swear, I submitted the receipts. They were legit, every one of them. I don't know how the discrepancy happened. I was watering the potted rosemary by the kitchen window. I kept my hand steady, pouring slowly, but every word sank in. She'd been fired. Not laid off, not downsized. Fired. And it wasn't new. She'd been keeping it from Darren, from everyone. But I wasn't surprised. People like Vanessa don't lose jobs. They erode them from the inside out, smiling all the way through the damage. That night, I stayed up late. Not watching TV, not reading, planning. The file I'd quietly built now had enough weight to tip a scale, and I was ready to lean in. I printed one document. Just one. It wasn't the audio. Not yet. It was the reimbursement discrepancies email I had overheard her mention weeks ago. She had left her work tablet open one night while bragging to her cousin about massaging numbers on client dinners. I'd taken a quick photo of the email summary, not because I planned to use it, but because I knew one day she might push too far. Now, she'd pushed. I typed up an anonymous tip. Subject: expense audit flag. Possible misconduct. Internal tip. Body: consider reviewing Vanessa R. Last name redacted's expense reports for the past 3 months, specifically meal reimbursements and travel claims. Discrepancies appear consistent and deliberate. Documentation exists. Tip submitted anonymously by a concerned party with direct exposure. I created a burner email, attached the photo, and sent it to her company's internal ethics line. Then I waited. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, Darren's cousin Stephanie called. She was freaking out at the nail salon, she said, her voice low, conspiratorial. Got some letter. Legal. Looked like a formal inquiry. I think they're opening an investigation. I just nodded. Oh, you didn't hear it from me. I hung up with a quiet, thank you, and stared at the window. Vanessa was cracking. The job she'd used to flaunt her success? Gone. The career she lorded over every family gathering? Under review. And now she couldn't even pretend. That evening, I added a new file to the thumb drive. Labeled it Ethics Tip, Sent. I didn't feel victorious. I felt precise. This wasn't revenge. This was response. Because you don't get to humiliate someone, dismantle their reputation in whispers, and walk away without consequence. Not forever. Darren still hadn't said anything. Not about the job. Not about the mood swings. But he was distant. Jumpy. I could tell something in the house was shifting, inching toward some inevitable collapse. At dinner, Vanessa barely spoke. She pushed her food around her plate, eyes darting every time her phone buzzed. Darren tried to make conversation. "So, Mom, how's work? Still doing okay on tips?" I looked at him for a moment, then smiled. "More than okay, dear. In fact, I've had some generous clients lately. One even said I should be teaching their staff how to manage pressure." Vanessa's fork clinked against her plate. I didn't gloat. I didn't blink. I just took another bite. Because here's the thing about women like me. We don't need to shout to be heard. We just move the right piece at the right time, and the ripple does the rest. It started as a whisper from the break room. "Did you hear? Vanessa applied for a position here." At first, I thought they were joking. Vanessa? Working at DeLuca's? After all her smug looks, her subtle digs about my little shifts and simple routines. After telling everyone I was too old to be working, too frail to be trusted. But it wasn't a rumor. 2 days later, she walked in wearing the uniform. Black slacks, crisp white shirt, hair tied back too tight like she was trying to hide how much this wasn't her choice. She didn't see me at first. I was rolling silverware near the kitchen when she walked past with a hostess training packet tucked under her arm. When her eyes finally landed on me, it was like watching glass shatter. That frozen, delayed disbelief that comes when a person's carefully curated world starts to spin in someone else's orbit. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I said, "Welcome to the team." She didn't respond. I went back to wrapping forks in napkins. 1, 2, 3 rolls, each one smoother than the last. By the end of the week, everyone knew something wasn't right. Vanessa fumbled orders, missed seatings, and snapped at a server in front of a customer. The manager gave her a written warning by Friday. Meanwhile, I got a letter. An invitation. The restaurant was hosting a charity dinner, a semi-formal affair honoring contributors to the local senior community. My name was at the top of the list. Guest of honor. They even asked me to say a few words. I didn't know how to react at first. I'd never been honored for anything that didn't have to do with surviving or serving. But when I showed the invitation to Louise, her eyes sparkled. "You're going," she said. "And you're going to wear that navy blue dress, the one you keep saving for something special." "Well, this is it," I smiled. "Do you think she'll be there?" "Oh, she'll be there," Louise said, deadly calm. "There's no way she'll miss a chance to see how many people still admire the woman she tried to erase." The night of the event, the restaurant transformed. Candles flickered on every table. Soft piano music curled through the air. People wore suits, blazers, glittered earrings, polished shoes. And there, tucked in the corner near the coat rack, was Vanessa, wearing the same uniform I wore every week, wiping down wine glasses. When she saw me in my navy dress, with my hair freshly done, and pearl earrings Harold had once given me for our 20th anniversary, something in her expression cracked. She tried to look busy, tried to disappear into the shadows of her station, but she couldn't hide from the applause when my name was called. "Martha Ellison," the manager said into the mic, "has been with us for just over a year. A former nurse, a quiet leader, a pillar of patience and kindness. Tonight, we honor not only her dedication, but her dignity." I walked to the front slowly, gracefully. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't water. I smiled. And across the room, Judge Harmon raised his glass from the VIP table. Vanessa saw it, saw everything. And suddenly, it didn't matter how many whispers she had seeded, how many lies she'd told. Because tonight, she was wearing the apron, and I was wearing the crown. I was seated near the center, between Louise and Judge Harmon. A small name card in front of me read, "Martha Ellison, honoree." It was surreal. For years, I'd been overlooked, underestimated, pushed to the corner of rooms and families. But tonight, they'd put me in the middle, and I belonged there. One of the servers had called in sick, and the manager asked for volunteers. Vanessa had stepped in, probably hoping to be seen as dependable, cooperative. Or maybe she just needed the overtime. She carried a tray of wine glasses like it weighed more than it should. Her eyes darted across the room, carefully avoiding mine. But I watched her. Every step, every twitch of the hand, every moment she tried to be invisible. And then it happened. She approached table 3, the one closest to the stage, and caught sight of me standing near the mic. Our eyes met. That 1-second glance unraveled her. The tray tilted. A glass slipped. Red wine poured like a ribbon of shame onto a woman's lap. Gasps echoed across the room. The woman shrieked, leaping up from her chair, napkin flailing. Vanessa stammered apologies, scrambling for towels, blotting uselessly. Then silence. Everyone turned toward me, toward the stage, and I saw it. The opening. I took the mic. I didn't clear my throat, didn't fumble. I simply looked at Vanessa and said, calm and clear, "Don't take too long." The words rippled. Gasps, whispers, a few quiet chuckles from those who remembered, from those who knew. Vanessa's face drained of color. Her hands froze mid-blot. The towel dropped. And suddenly, she wasn't just the clumsy waitress who spilled wine. She was the Vanessa, the one who'd pointed and mocked, the one who'd said, "Poor waitress," loud enough to break something in me. But that version of me was gone now. Judge Harmon smiled, slowly, lifted his glass again. Louise leaned in, her voice soft but sharp. Timing. Always about timing. The woman with the stained dress stood up. "It's okay," she said gently. "Accidents happen." But her eyes lingered on me, curious, questioning, like she wanted to know the rest of the story. And she wasn't alone. I didn't say more. I didn't need to. I stepped down from the podium and returned to my seat. Vanessa fled to the back, hands shaking, face blotchy with panic. The damage was done. Not to the guest's gown, but to Vanessa's mask. By the end of the night, whispers had spread like wildfire. People asked who she was, why she looked so shaken, what "don't take too long" meant. And when they heard, when Louise let the words drop, slowly, like breadcrumbs, they recorded her, the mother-in-law, everything, the lies, the meds, the slander. It's all on tape. The room didn't applaud anymore. It watched Vanessa retreat, watched Darren stand frozen in the corner, the realization dawning on him like a slow-moving car crash. Watched me, not as a burden, but as a woman who stood in fire, stayed quiet, and finally spoke. It started with a clip. Someone had filmed the moment. The broken glass, the spilled wine, my calm voice slicing through the tension like a scalpel. "Don't take too long." A line so simple, yet soaked in history. By morning, it had been uploaded to 2 local community pages. By noon, it was shared by a parenting forum under the title, "When Respect Wears Pearls." And by nightfall, it had reached the inboxes of Darren's extended family. Not by me. By the algorithm. Screenshots flew like feathers. The flash drive on the table, Judge Harmon raising his glass, Darren storming out red-faced. But what caught fire the fastest wasn't the drama. It was the contrast. Me. Poised. Quiet. Not cowering. Her. Flustered. Defensive. Gone. Within 48 hours, the messages started pouring in. Cousins who hadn't called in years. Family friends. Even Harold's former coworkers. "Martha, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." She always struck me as performative. Now I know why. I saw the clip. You were dignified. You were devastating. And then, the real shift happened. David, the cousin who'd once chuckled politely while Vanessa joked about me, sent me an email, a full apology. He wrote, "I let her talk about you like you were an obligation. I should have known better, If you're ever ready to talk, I'd like to listen this time. But it wasn't just sympathy that came. It was suspicion. Of Vanessa. Of Darren. The family who once sat silent as she made jabs about my memory, my worth, my place in their house. Now they were whispering behind her back. Louise called me the next evening, a glass of wine in hand and victory humming through her voice. "You're trending," she said, "and you didn't even need a TikTok." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I truly laughed. Meanwhile, Vanessa's world shrank. Her ex-employer reopened their investigation. According to Stephanie, Darren's other cousin, Vanessa had received a formal letter demanding a full audit of her expense history and threatening civil action for fraudulent claims. She tried to spin it, of course, claimed it was sour grapes from a jealous coworker. But the evidence didn't lie. And neither did the audio. Louise had made sure it was delivered. To the company, to the lawyer, to the family members who had ears and memories and now reasons to doubt everything they'd been fed. Even Darren's father's sister, quiet, stern Aunt Marjorie, called me. She'd never liked me, never trusted me fully. But this time, "I should have known," she said. "He changed after the wedding. So did she. You deserved better." I didn't need her approval, but I'll admit, it was satisfying to hear her say it. The final blow came a week later. A community group hosted a blog feature titled, "How One Grandmother Reclaimed Her Narrative." They didn't name names, but the story was clear. The woman who served others with grace was now being honored, and the one who mocked her now wore the apron, and none of the respect. I received flowers from a stranger. A card that read, "For every woman who chose silence," and later, the perfect sentence. I kept it on my nightstand, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. When they tried to erase me, they thought I'd go quietly. They didn't know. Quiet doesn't mean gone. It means precise. It means listening. It means waiting until the truth can walk into the room wearing a name tag and carrying receipts.